Okay. Okay, here we go. This is a big episode because we finally have Uncle Stevie. We didn't coin that phrase, but that's the phrase that has been thrown around about Steve Cohen and buying the New York Mets. And I have to say, I couldn't be more excited. I know these guys are too. So, you know what, Windrum, because you have the shirt on, because you're showing the most enthusiasm right now, I'm going to let you go first. So just empty it out, not too much because we'll be here forever, but just tell me your basic thoughts on Steve Cohen.
I mean, there's nothing more you can want. He's like one of us. He's a Mets fan that's coming in and wants to change it. You see him interacting with the fans on Twitter. We haven't seen any interaction between ownership and fan since the Wilpons took over almost 20 years ago. I mean, this guy's going to bring like a new life into New York sports in general, not just the Mets, but he's going to bring in another big market franchise. I mean, you're looking at the Yankees now. They're talking a little bit about cutting back on spending. And the Mets, in this sense, we're going all in on spending. First time that's happened really in any of our lifetimes. So, I mean, it's something you got to be excited about regardless.
Definitely, mouthful.
It feels good to be part of the crew now with the Dodgers and the Yankees. It's about time after all these years.
Let's not go there just yet. In terms of the money, I would say yes.
With the money, yes.
Yeah.
With the money. That's what I meant. But it was just like after all these years of having to deal with, we know who the Mets want, who the Mets should get, but they never come up in conversations because they don't want to spend. Now we can actually have fun and we could start doing what the Yankee fans do and say, hey, maybe we should go out and get this guy in 2 years. Yeah. Now we can actually join in on that. So it's about time. And more importantly, like Windrum was saying, he interacts with the fans, which is something like nobody else does. The only other people that I see that do that, maybe Mark Cuban.
Right.
But that's pretty much it. So it's good to have something like that.
I thought it was funny when that Twitter page came up because I think like so many people were just like
I didn't think it was real.
What?
I didn't think it was real.
Me neither. And like I think that people were like commenting on that, like hoping it was him, and then like it finally came out that it was him. So like I think that is gonna be like really interesting and see like how engaging he is with people over social media. Especially like that.
The funny thing is this guy's been reclusive for like 20 years. I mean, he's only been focusing on .72. He's been investing. And everyone said when he was first buying the team, this guy was going to be reclusive. He was just going to be money. He was just going to throw the money out there and just give something. But now he's getting involved more, and you just feel like it's not like he's treating this like a business, but he's treating it like a project where he wants to dominate, he wants to win, and he's going to do everything in his power to do such.
Yeah.
And it's just so exciting to see.
He can be involved. I don't personally want like a Steinbrenner kind of involved, where it was like all the spotlight and attention is going to be on him, which I don't think he's like that, because he hasn't had one interview, like he hasn't had any press conferences. Like I think this guy is very reserved. So I think that like he can be involved in different ways. I just don't want like a Steinbrenner type. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like how he runs the team, if he's like, this is the guy I want and I don't care what you guys say, I'm all in on that. I just don't want like the celebrity persona that Steinbrenner wanted to have and like had in the media.
Yeah. No, this guy's gonna want to go out there and push. I mean, he's so smart. He's gonna want to push the right guys to run this team. Like, I mean, he's bringing back Sandy already. That's a huge piece. Sandy's been with this is the first time Sandy's going to get real money to spend. I mean, he's been in Oakland. This is his second stint in New York. He's been in Arizona. I mean, he's never really had this kind of money to play with. I mean, when we saw he had a little bit of it, you got Yoenis Cespedes. He went and got Neil Walker. He's gotten guys who you would spend more than you would expect the Mets to spend.
It's funny how you say, oh, he went out and got Cespedes and got Neil Walker. That's
it's the first thing that comes to my head after that. I'm like, who's another free agent signing?
But exactly, but Neil Walker was like the standard for us now. But now that's out the window. Like
exactly.
More, you know what I mean? which is finally relieving. I mean, he wasn't even bad, but still, like now we can set our sights on like LeMay Hughes or Francisco Lindors and all that. But yeah, no more thumb change. A Windrum.
Oh yeah, we've gone from the bottom feeders to the king of the castle.
Yeah, so I want to know what you guys have for predictions for this offseason. Maybe stuff that probably like more realistic, on the more like realistic view, because I know people are like, oh, why don't you just trade for Lindor and then sign Bauer and Real Muto and Springer? Like, I think that's crazy even for Steve Cohen. I don't think that's possible for anybody. But I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that because I got some ideas, that could really shake up the team. But I mean, Malfoy, what do you got?
I got bad internet connection. All right, here we go.
You're good.
There we go. We're back. All right. So I think I know everybody wants Bauer. I'm a little skeptical that they're going to sign him. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, me neither.
I do think they're going to trade for Lindor. That I think is going to happen. I know they've been talking about a Yu Darvish trade. I don't know if I would go after him, but I do think
he's kind of old, Yu Darvish.
I think they're going to get Realmuto, assuming they miss out on Bauer. I think they're going to get Realmuto. I don't think they're going to get Springer. It would be nice to get something like LeMahieu, but I can only see them doing that if Cohen tells them to try to go out and trade Cano, and he'll take half the salary to let them trade him, because teams aren't going to just trade for him if the Mets don't take on some salary. But I think he's 3 years, $60 million the rest of his contract. Yeah. So if Cohen's I'll eat 30 of the 60, and somebody takes him, I could see somebody like the Marlins coming in there with Jeter knowing Cano.
Interesting.
I could see somebody like that coming in, and then that opens up a spot for LeMahieu to go in at second. Because I would like to keep Jimenez as the utility right now, and also an option to as a trade piece, because who knows, they may have to put him in the Lindor trade.
I know. So what I think, well, first I think all the Mets fans have kind of got sidetracked by this ever since the Cohen deal got announced. But you have to extend Conforto. Conforto has to be locked up. He is one of the cornerstones. He's one of the guys, So Conforto, extension. And then I think that they have to pull a Mookie Betts with Lindor. That is a statement. That is a franchise player. Personally, I would like to trade Rosario in the deal instead of Jimenez. But if it has to come down to Jimenez, then it just does. Lindor, you can't not trade him to not get Lindor. So I think you got to do extend Conforto, trade, and then sign Lindor. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but Realmuto came out and said that he's not really too keen. That's what he said, keen on playing in New York. So I think what's going to happen is that they're going to go and get James McCann from the White Sox, who's actually not that bad. And then you got to get a reliever or one starting pitcher, maybe Charlie Morton or Liam Hendricks, one of those guys. But I think that's how it's kind of going to shape out for them. I agree with you. I don't think Bauer. I don't think Springer. Even though that would be awesome. Springer worries me though because he strikes out a lot, and
he's getting up there in age too. Because they got to be careful.
When he comes to the Mets, he's going to have one of those
he's 29.
He's I think he'll be 33 when the season starts. Because I looked it up the other day and I'm almost positive.
Who, Springer?
I'll double check that. Yeah.
I don't think he's that old.
But, regardless, I can see Springer having one of those classic new Met signings years where he hits 230, strikes out 150 times, and hits 22 home runs. So for the money that he's.
It'll be 31 at the start of the season. Springer will be 31 at the start of the season.
Yeah, so that's a fair point too. He is getting a little older. So I think Lindor, Conforto, McCann, and then bullpen, and then maybe one starting pitcher because you got DeGrom, you got Peterson, you have Syndergaard coming back, and then if you get one more rotation piece that's at least 4 guys, and then gotta help the bullpen. And I don't care how good Edwin Diaz was, I still don't trust him. Do not like that guy. He needs help. The guys need help in that pen.
I mean, the way I'm thinking, lock up Conforto is priority 1. I think in-house should be focused on first. I mean, you got to lock up Conforto. I think a smart move would be to lock up Syndergaard before the season. You'll get him for cheaper than you would have gotten him last year if you tried to sign him for this extension because he's coming back from Tommy John. He's made it known he loves New York, and he has loved Cohen. He's already made that known on Twitter. But everything I've read has said Cohen's going to be more involved in the trade market than in free agency. So, I mean, I think that implies, a big deal like a Lindor. But then again, you got to think, Malf, I know you were mentioning LeMahieu earlier. We have a logjam in the middle of the infield, We got Ahmed, we got Jimenez. Jeff McNeil's natural spot is second, and if we can get him back there, that's where he's looked the best when he's been a Met. We got Maruccio coming up. I mean, those are 4 top-level middle infielders in the major leagues. So I mean, you can.
Too.
Well, yeah, you can move on from Ahmed. You can move on from Mauricio and maybe JD Davis, like you saw on SNY. They're saying something like that to go get Lindor. Because, I mean, Cleveland's trading Lindor without knowing if the Mets could be able to sign him to an extension. So they got to get what's the best they can get.
I think if you get Lindor, you have to sign him. Like a 1-year rental for that guy isn't it's not worth it.
You can't. I mean, he has to be the face of your franchise going forward with Mikey and Pete and Dom and all those guys. I mean, the big issue is, are we going to have a DH next year? What's going to go on with the Dom Pete situation? I mean,
would you trade Dom to get Lindor?
I would highly consider it. I mean, Dom's value's never been higher. He's never really, other than this year, shown the way he could play at the major league level. I mean, this year he was a great first baseman. Don't get me wrong. He's a great defender. He finally had the bat we've expected. But while his value's high, why don't you go ship him for some pitching? Get some pitching help behind Jake and Noah, someone to sign that number 3 spot before Peterson. Personally, I'd like to get Bauer. I mean, I feel like Bauer – he's going to want a good amount, but the intensity he'd bring and just the know that he wants to win would be huge for the Mets. I mean, it's just a whole culture shift from last year to this year. Another thing, Bauer's agent came out and said that the only team in Major League Baseball that is going to be willing to pay that top-level money this offseason seems like it's going to be the Mets, and that's been intriguing to Trevor.
She said that?
That came out today. I read that today.
Oh, interesting. I didn't see that.
Yeah, so she said that the only team that looks like they're going to pay as much as Trevor wants is the Mets. So, I mean, does that give them an upper hand in that scenario? I mean, do you want to rebuild the super rotation we had 5 years ago with Jake, Matt, Noah, Steven? Like, do we want to rebuild that all? I mean, that's how we made the last World Series, and this time we have a lineup reminiscent of 06, our other best team since then.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably the perfect time. I mean, you got to make the trade for Lindor. I think you got to get Bauer. And I think you got to trade Robbie Cano. Cano, like Dom Smith, their value hasn't been higher. I mean, Robbie's had his best season since midway through the beginning of his Seattle deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, like, if there's still a DH in the National League, I would do my best to keep Smith. If there's not, I would ship him right out of town for a pitcher,
Exactly.
you said, or if need be, to get Lindor. But if there's a DH, I would really try to keep him. If not,
100%.
And he's almost useless, because you can't keep a bat like that in the bench and then not get any value from him.
Exactly. And I mean, what was my other thing I was going to say? Malfa, you mentioned LeMahieu, right? Just like a deal like that. And the thing is, we have our LeMahieu. We have our guy at second base. His name's Jeff McNeil, and that's why we got to make that deal to ship Robbie. My thinking personally is, if LeMahieu leaves the Yankees, Robbie's a perfect fit to go back there. He's fit in there so well all his career. If we can ship him over to the Yankees, and if we miss out on McCann and Real Muto and maybe flip it for Sanchez, it's not the worst deal ever.
If we miss out on Real Muto and McCann, we're fucked. Because I do not want Gary Sanchez. That guy, him and Wilson Ramos, are the two laziest catchers I've ever seen.
They're terrible. I mean, Martin Maldonado.
Are they not the laziest pieces of shit you've ever seen?
They're terrible. They're brutal. I mean, personally, I'd like a guy, instead of a Real Muto or McCann, get a guy like Maldonado, a guy that will steal strikes for your pitchers and a guy that the pitchers want to throw to.
I don't want Maldonado. Yeah, I mean, they have a lineup, so it's like the bat isn't as important as, pitching and bullpen. However, when it comes to a player like Lindor, it's hard to just, shy away from him. But those are all interesting stuff. So Malfa says LeMahieu. Windy says maybe trade Dom for a pitcher. That's interesting. I say, and I mean, I'm sure we're all in agreement on this, but I think get Lindor, but only get Lindor if you can, pull like a Mookie Betts Dodgers type of deal, because he's going to cost a pretty penny to give up. So
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
When I was looking today, they came up with some trade offers, and the one that I saw that was pretty interesting, and I was going to bring it up. They had it as Brett Beatty, Rosario, and Nimmo.
How many more first-round picks are we going to trade?
Yeah, I don't want to touch any of those guys in the farm. I mean, Beatty's one of those guys we're hoping could be our a new reminiscent of David Wright, a guy to come up and play third and be a cornerstone. I've seen like you have Malfa. Like I saw those trades too. They're throwing guys like JT Ginn, Matthew Allen. I mean, those guys after Jake, whenever he eventually, starts to fall off the hill of greatness that he's on, which I don't know how long that's going to be. But then you're going to have the guys like Matthew Allen, JT Ginn rising up the ranks to take over and be the next era of Mets pitching.
The only way I'd be okay with giving up somebody like Beatty is if Cohen had went to Alderson. It was like, next year our guy's Arenado, and he's going to be here for a while. What are we going to do with Beatty?
No, look, honestly, at the end of the day, if it comes down to getting players like Lindor and Arenado, I think that you almost have to go all out. Like, you can't half measure it. Obviously, do whatever you can to not, give up everything you have. Because I still think that Rosario holds some value, not as much as 2019, because he kind of lost some playing time this year to Jimenez and Cano. And, like we said, it's a loaded infield. But I think we're all just scarred from trading first-round picks. Obviously, getting Lindor is different than getting Cano and Diaz. In terms of Kalenic for them and now Brady. Possibly for Lindor. But yeah, we just have such a bad track record of giving up young talent.
So, Malfa mentioned an interesting thing, though. Nolan Arenado, that's another trade candidate. If we miss out on Lindor, would be an interesting guy to think about. We don't have a true third baseman on the roster. We have plenty of middle infield guys.
The Rockies kind of fucked them over too. They signed for that deal, and then they were shopping him around when it sounded like he wanted to stay. So I think now he wants out. On top of that, they just suck too.
Yeah, he's got the deal. It's not like something we're going to have to negotiate. He's locked in. He would be our third baseman for the next 7 years. He's not a bad candidate to think about as well behind Lindor, but Lindor's got to be priority number one. They just got to make a splash.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you guys think about GMs? Because I don't personally know any of the GMs on the market. Whoever Steve Cohen picks, I don't care if it's like a blind monkey to be GM, I'll be okay with it. Because at the end of the day, that GM, in my opinion, is going to be almost like a face, to hold a certain position in the organization. But, if it comes down to, player A and player B and Cohen wants one or the other, that's, who they're going to get. And that's where I think it's going to be more like a Steinbrenner kind of running things because, he's like, I feel like Cohen's going to put his foot down in certain situations. But, I'm not sure if you guys have heard any possible candidates.
I've heard of a couple. Given it's Alderson, I think the automatic instinct is to refer back to guys that were there when he was GM during his tenure. So, a guy like J.P. Riccardi, who was big in the scouting department back then, he's one. Another guy who I've seen and I've fallen in love with is Billy Owens from Oakland. He was there ever since Alderson was there. He rose up the ranks from scout to assistant GM. And this guy, he's been known as the best scout in all of baseball in finding young talent and finding talent in general. Because they've already said there's probably going to be two guys underneath Alderson. One is director of baseball ops and one is general manager. So if that's the case, you can bring in a J.P. Riccardi and a Billy Owens to manage this entire team. And I would feel confident with that level of trust within those three.
Absolutely. Malfa, what about you?
I haven't really seen too much. I read an article today, and they listed a couple people. One of them was Mike Chernoff from the Indians GM.
Oh yeah.
They actually said he's a local guy, so they said that could have some ties. He's from around here.
Dude, it would be great if we can get a whole bunch of Mets fans that grew up and only saw one World Series and they all hated the Yankees, and we could they could all just come together and finally be that New York team that they always wanted growing up. Because Cohen being a New York guy, and whoever this guy is, if he's a local guy, that would be awesome. And with the amount of money and power that would be in that room, there's no way that they wouldn't just trample the Yankees. Because I can't wait to finally win a World Series, and the Yankees not to win a World Series after paying, Garrett Cole like $700 million, it's going to be the greatest feeling in the world.
Oh, it's gonna be a dream. It's a dream come true.
We've been
I mean,
waiting a while for it.
we've been waiting a lifetime for this.
Absolutely. Fellas, that's all I got for you and, for this segment today. But we'll come back either maybe in 2 weeks or maybe next time some big news drops and we'll break it down. We'll shoot the shit a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, guys. All right, signing off.